Hi, friends. Before we get started, I want to tell you about a way that you can find so many podcasts led by women voices, and that is through the Lady Pod Squad. The Lady Pod Squad is a hashtag that you can search on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and you can find so many podcasts that you might not even have heard about, and you can add in more women's voices into your podcast listening agenda, your earhole agenda, if you will, every single day. And the reason why I'm telling you about that today is because I met Justine and Ashley from the Cutaways Podcast through the Lady Pod Squad, and they mentioned the Lady Pod Squad in the episode. So I just wanted to remind you, that's one way you can find new podcasts. So search, everyone, hashtag Lady Pod Squad. Let's go. You're listening to Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits, a podcast that encourages you to love more on your friends and to further consider the issues that plague friendships. I'm Alysa Lucas, and I'm having an online slumber party with two of my favorite podcasters, Ashley and Justine from the Cutaways Podcast. Hello!
Slumber party!
She knows our branding.
Listen, I'm a patron. I haven't listened to every episode, though, because...
Why would you?
Time.
I'm locked out of Patreon, so I have no idea who our patrons are. Justine just, curates all of that content, and I'm just like,
I'm a
whatever.
control freak.
Yeah, you are.
And we're already getting right into it. The friendship. I like it. But for those of you out there that don't know the Cutaways, I think the lady should tell us a little bit about it so you can get into the slumber party as well. Who wants to describe the podcast to some of my listeners that might not know?
Ashley.
Yeah, okay. She always makes me do it. So we're the Cutaways Podcast. We started 4 seasons ago. The only reason I know that is because I am currently in the process of doing the Cutaways makeover and, banging my head against the wall with WordPress. It's so much fun. But we are 2 film editors in Hollywood, California.
Holla.
Both of us have been friends for a while. I don't even remember the exact date. This is 2011?
There's a whole lot of, I don't know.
It just happened, okay? I don't think we fully, everything is in, we know the main key points, but we don't have the exact, archaeological points of reference.
I love that. An archaeology dig on friendships. Let's get into it.
But our podcast is not about friendships. Well, it can be.
Yes.
But it's about romantic comedies through the ages. We started the podcast with a romantic comedy called I Don't Want to Be a Man. That's from 1918. It's a German silent film.
Fun.
And currently we are cruising in the 2000s. So, we've been cruising right along. We try and kind of give a fresh perspective on romantic comedies that, everybody knows and loves. Most of the time we hate the romantic comedies that everybody knows and loves. But we have had some really nice surprises and some nice gems along the way.
Yeah, and that's what I love about it because I'm a huge movie fan. I'm more of a visual, I like television, I like movies. And so that's why I say I don't have time for listening to podcasts because it's but I want to watch television. So it's I have to balance my time. But romantic comedies is not my favorite genre of movie. And so, but it's so fun and there's so many classics. One of my favorite episodes is Grease 2, and I stand by Grease 2, and that is the hill I will die on.
Yes.
I will die on how terrible it is of a movie.
Team Justine. Team Justine.
Sorry. It's just, there's so many moments. Just a beautiful
Surprisingly,
moments.
that's not the one that was the most fracturing, though.
Really? Well...
Yeah, there was another one where Justine
fans.
Absolutely loved. I think it was Miranda. You loved Miranda, and I just hated it.
Oh, right. For a second, I was like, what's Miranda?
You've forgotten what movies you've watched.
So many.
One of the things I was wondering, though, is, and this question wasn't on the list that I sent you, but since we're talking about your podcast, I've wondered this. What do you think you've learned about friendship through watching romantic comedies?
Friendship
it's a stumper,
portrayed
right?
in movies or our own friendship?
Yes. Well, first we'll start with movies, and then we'll get into your friendship.
Friendship in movies is kind of a hot mess. It's all over the place. I really we've talked about this a lot, like the best friend trope that's used throughout, especially romantic comedies, where she just has literally nothing to do within her own life in the movie. It's just she's there to support the main character. She's willing to do all these crazy hijinks, which now I'm thinking of How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, and I'm like, oh my God, it's going to perpetuate this whole trope because I've seen it. And just like, oh, Kate Hudson, you do not deserve those girls at all. Your friends are too good
I feel like
for
that's
you.
what it comes
Like,
down
that's
to
tense.
a lot. It's just like the best friend has like usually like 3 friends of maybe mixed racial ambiguity, and like literally she just goes and like meets up with them, and they're just all about propelling her plot forward, like nothing else.
I like the use of the word plot because that especially seems relevant to the movie that you'll be doing in the future. But most movies, there's usually like, because it's not just the plot of the character, but she also typically has a plan, like to lose the guy in 10 days, right? So, and who am I thinking of? I'm blanking on her name. Is it Jill Greer, who's usually...
Judy
is that her
Greer.
name? No.
Judy
Greer.
Greer.
Oh, God, what's wrong with me? Let's cut that out. The best friend, Judy Greer. I feel like she's in everything, and I love that as like a friendship, but it's not realistic. And it's like, can we add in more friends to these movies? And
well, you're either the best friend or you're the mom. and I think Judy Greer is actually a perfect example because in the new Jurassic World movie, she's just the mom, and that's like her whole thing. Like, she even has a line where she's just like, oh, Bryce Dallas Howard, just wait until you have kids. You don't understand. It's like,
Yeah.
but why? Why, Colin Trevorrow? Why did that have to be a line in the movie?
It comes to what we talk about a lot about, like, not having a multifaceted woman, character.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's just like being a friend is only when the main character needs her, right? Like, so she's not, or even like I'm thinking of No Strings Attached with Ashton Kutcher, and I'm having a day with names. Queen Amidala.
Natalie Portman.
What's her?
Oh, Natalie Portman.
Sorry. Why can I remember anyone's name? That doesn't help with a multidimensional woman if you can't even remember their name, right? But in that movie, it's kind of like, well, here's Ludacris, and he's here for 5 minutes in a bar, and then we never really see him again. So it's like they're at the beck and call of the person, and I would like to see more of a give and take. But I feel like when that happens, then it's going to be a movie about friendship, but then we don't see those very often either.
I think the movie that I always connect with that really shows like a real friendship, and this is going to be hilarious because I always reference this movie as with Sam, is oh shit, now I'm forgetting.
Did you get my bug of not remembering stuff?
Probably. It's Paul Rudd and Jason Segel.
Oh, is that the
I Love You, Man.
I Love You, Man. Yeah, I think that movie really does. It's a romantic comedy, but it also really captures like the idea of what friendship should be about. Like, you should be able to tell your friend when they're being a shithead, and also have those moments of support. But it can't just be all support and nothing else. Like, there has to be this dynamic of ebb and flow, and asking for support but not being able to give it in those moments, and that's fine, and we're all kind of understanding. I think people in general are understanding of when something you just can't support what another person is doing and being able to voice it.
I like Sleepless in Seattle, I think, is another good one because the whole time is like spent with their friends because the main characters are only together for like 5 minutes at the end.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
that is a good one. Rosie O'Donnell is great in that one.
Yes, Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah. I haven't seen that movie in so long, but you're exactly right. They're only spoiler alert for those of you who haven't seen the movie, when they meet at the top of the building, right? So, I mean, that's a really good point. And Ashley, I like how you use the words ebb and flow. That's something I talk about in my classes, that most relationships are constantly changing. And so we have to use communication to balance our relationships and so that they don't get completely out of whack, right? One direction or the other. And so movies don't really capture that, the ebb and flow of the friendship and how they might integrate or conflict with the romantic relationship. And so I think that oftentimes we look at stuff where the relationships are separate and not how they might integrate together. So,
and that's something that I think my generation, especially, I'm a millennial. So we've seen friendships through movies. So we have learned how to express friendship through movies. And that's why there's a lot of problems with energy vampires and toxic people who just take because they believe that they're the main character in their own story, and they don't see the ebb and the flow of it and the ability to recognize that the other person is also a main character in their own movie. So you need to also be the supportive best friend. You need to be both. You need to be the spunky main character and the best friend character.
I love that. They think they're the main character in their own movie. But it's like, but everyone's movies are coinciding in some way. So I love that. I think that's great. And after saying that, it seems weird to segue into being like, can we talk about only your friendship? but that's why you're here today, right? And so if there's another time you want to integrate in other relationships, or maybe we can during this conversation, we can make it happen. So on this podcast, I love to start with the friendship origin story. And as you said at the beginning of the podcast, you don't remember the date. But do you remember the meeting or the feeling?
No.
Like, how did y'all meet?
Oh, no, we remember that.
Okay.
is particularly stand out in our lives.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this. So yes, tell me your friendship origin story, and feel free to correct each other or add in stuff. So Justine, it looks like you want to say something.
No. Well, we were working on set together, but we were in separate departments. Ashley was data wrangling in a secret room in the back, and I was...
It was a closet. It was literally a closet.
I was script supervising. And that's more, up front, near the cameras and stuff. And so, we didn't see each other at all whilst we were on set together, and it was a short film, and I don't know how many days it was. I don't remember anything else.
Alysa here, interrupting her own podcast to let you know that we had a little bit of technical difficulties and missed part of Justine and Ashley's origin story, mainly where they met in Chicago, but I can give you some of that information now. They met on a movie set. They were both working, and what they discovered was a lot of connections, same work, same school connections, same neighborhood. When they finally meet in this sort of chance, we're giving this person a ride, and she lives like a block away. They look at each other and they say, it's like looking in a damn mirror. And so you can kind of think of this recap of what I heard as, a movie montage that you might see in a romantic comedy. And now we're going to pick up with the next scene where Justine had gone to LA and Ashley follows suit, and we'll see what happens when Ashley lands in LA and how their friendship blooms.
Yeah, I came to LA near the end of 2012, and then Ashley showed up a couple years later and needed a couch to crash on. Gave me a little call.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, though, because a lot of times, like, big moves like that are hard, or moving to a new city for your profession, whatever the case is, it can be hard. So you were supportive to each other. So tell us a little bit about living together. What was that like?
It was great. My boyfriend at the time hated it. But he's not my boyfriend anymore.
Too bad, so sad.
Nope.
He couldn't roll with us.
He wasn't
Nope,
cool
we
enough.
burned too bright. We just, we cut out the cancer.
Sometimes it's just a snip, baby. Cut out the people, right?
See, I'm shadier about your ex-boyfriend than you are sometimes, I feel like.
You are. I'm like, I don't know if you're over it, Ashley. I'm over it. But,
But isn't that what friends are for?
I guess typically, yeah. Oh man, so I like Ashley. It was great because the first night there, like as soon as she gets in and in our apartment, we have an earthquake.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Welcome to LA.
Yeah.
It was a big one, too.
It was a big one. Like we just had a tiny one the other night. I think it was just like a 2.9 in the north of the valley, and it was just like a truck went by. That's what it felt like down here. But yeah, that one was actual like bookshelves, like
That was a 4.5 or something. I remember because we went to one of the museums after, like, a while after Sam was visiting a couple weeks later, and they had the Richter scale and they showed how when it went off and on that date, and they had it marked and everything, and I was like, hey, look, that's when I moved here.
Yeah, Ashley landed and the ground shook.
And nothing was ever the same again.
Pretty much.
Exactly. And then we immediately watched Frozen.
As you do. I mean, yeah, it was like Justine, it seemed like, had been itching to watch Frozen and had nobody to watch it with. And she's like, so you want to watch Frozen? And I'm like, fuck yes, I want to watch Frozen.
As everyone says in response to that question.
Yep.
And then it was like immediately after that was when I say is the pinpoint for when we became best friends. It's exactly like that scene in Step Brothers where it's just like, did we just become best friends? And it's like, yes, we did.
Yep.
And over
high
Frozen. Frozen high five.
Yep.
That's amazing. So the way I think about it, because I do listen to your podcast, is like when you became friends that night was your first slumber party.
Yeah, like
your first slumber party.
Magic ever since.
So yeah, do you have some stories that sort of reflect your friendship or been markers of your friendship when you moved to LA in the last few years?
Yeah, so Ashley lived with me for a couple months, and then she got her own place, which was sad. I was like, take me with you.
Yeah, she kind of was. She was like, I am captive, please.
And still at that point, she only lived 10 minutes away from me.
Yeah.
In all of LA. Like, LA is freaking huge. And hint too, that's why we started our podcast. But still 10 minutes away. And then her fiance came to live with her.
Nice.
And then they had to get married. And why I said it like that, I'm like, I guess I had to.
Well, no, our friendship is literally, so the easiest way to describe our friendship is that we are Corey and Sean from Boy Meets World.
Exactly.
So I'm Corey and Justine is Sean, and Sam, my husband, is Topanga.
Does he have luscious hair like she does?
Yeah,
actually, he does.
Her hair is fantastic.
Oh wait! I will pull up a photograph.
Oh,
Sam has curls that women die for.
He's all natural.
Nothing like
That's
a good
so
head of luscious hair.
Let's find it. Oh, here's one of his from a morning ago.
Oh, he does have luscious hair.
Look at that. See? Don't you? You're like, if only. And he does nothing. He's a boy.
Yeah, he literally does nothing.
Seems unfair. So are you up to like Sean and Corey antics then? Are you the troublemaker, Justine? And Ashley is the follow the rules sort of person?
Not really.
No. I'm like, reverse that.
I think it's more like my backstory is a little bit more like Sean's, I guess, in the terms of like darkness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very loud and obnoxious, like Corey. I connect with that a lot more, and there's just that whole like star-crossed lovers thing with Sam is kind of true.
Yeah,
because when I first moved to LA, he was still back in the Midwest, and we lived apart for probably 9 months before he moved here.
Yeah,
so it was a very long trek. And actually, Justine, didn't you make a documentary like when we went to the book thing?
Yes.
For One Day on Earth.
What did you make a doc of?
There's a documentary on my Vimeo channel. It's short. It's just a one day of Ashley and I going to the library book sale, but it's also about her just moving to LA and having to be away from Sam.
Yeah, you called it Love and Longing in LA.
Because we found a book with that title.
Love and Longing in LA. I love
And
it.
that was before I had a car, so we were walking everywhere.
Oh, we were busing and pointing out all the times they were advertising Spider-Man.
Oh, that's true.
I don't even remember which Spider-Man that was.
Because there's so
there's
many.
been so many.
That
was in it?
That
Who
was
knows?
Spider-Man 2 with Andrew Garfield.
Oh, amazing.
my
That was
Spider-Man.
because that was Sony. Because we were down by Sony, so it was
Right.
all over there.
Wow. I really like the idea of you making that movie, The Love and Longing in LA. Is that something that you have done before? Or have you done other times where you make movies together for your friendship? Or is that mainly stay to the workplace?
No, we don't normally do that.
I mean, in Chicago, I was her assistant and on a little short film called Hat Boxes, and that was fun. But then she left me to go to LA. She likes to leave me a lot.
I knew she was going to say that.
Well, if she leaves you, then don't forget you had to get married. Even Steven.
So much shade between us.
I'm here for it. I'm here to mediate.
It's lovingly shady. It is not real like, girl, I'm gonna cut you with these razor blades that are up in my hair or some shit like that. No. No, it's not that kind of shade. It's love shade.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love shade.
No, Ashley's always like, why are you always leaving me? And I'm like, why does Sam have to go everywhere we go?
Well, he
doesn't always.
Well, I do think relationships, as we were talking about at the beginning of like how romantic relationships and friendships should integrate with each other, but films don't show that. How have you been able to integrate romantic and your friendship together? Because you just said, why does Sam always have to go? Or Sam came here and then she had to get married. And so how have you managed that?
Well, it's also funny because we always say that like the day that they got married, like Ashley and I, that was our wedding day too, because I'm also
one of her aunts also thought we actually had gotten married.
Like they legit thought like, oh yay, I'm so proud of you, Justine, and I'm like, wait a minute.
And she gave you the rainbow hearts. I thought that was so sweet.
Yeah, no, super supportive, just misdirected.
Yeah. Because there's a picture of us together with our flowers that she posted on her Facebook page, and her aunt commented like, I didn't know you were getting married, Justine.
Like I would have said something. But okay. That was
Appreciate the support.
hide my gay love.
Well, here's the thing. Friendship has love too.
Oh, yeah.
So
I was saying that, like, since I've signed on her wedding certificate, like, my name's on there too.
So it's like forever.
Yes.
We didn't have quite the existential crisis that Sean and Corey had on Corey's wedding day.
No.
I feel like
I was
like
a little sad, yeah.
Yeah, you were sad. No, it was, but there was way too much shit to do for you to process your feelings until like way later on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I do feel like I went through the Sean thing from Boy Meets World where he was like, well, now, you know, I'm out of the picture. It's you two and not me, you know. I feel like I felt that like really real.
Yeah.
It's a real thing.
Yeah. Well,
and I'm just like, you're gaining a Sam.
You get Topanga.
I didn't ask for her, Sam. I'm
but
such
you
a
get
Sean.
To talk about the luscious hair. Like, look at the hair.
He does. I saw a
ask
picture.
him to be
he has
judgy
hair.
about things.
So, sorry.
We have a complex friendship.
We do.
Well, but I do think that, I mean, that's something that people experience, right? Like, a lot of times our friendships are at the forefront, and then when people get married, we negotiate that. And I think that sometimes there can be some difficulties in doing that, and sometimes there's not. But it's completely normal and natural to have those feelings of what's going to happen with the change. But unfortunately, things can't always stay the same. So it's how can you stay friends during that? So what did you do to sort of negotiate Sam? I like how we're integrating him.
Well, we have our podcast, and that's pretty much our alone time. It's our little bubble.
Yeah.
It used to be where when we first started the podcast, Justine was still living only 10 minutes away, and we would I come and either she would come here or I would come and pick her up like on a Sunday, and she'd come over for Game of Thrones.
Nice.
Like that was the initial, like, we're going to watch Game of Thrones, because that was the year you decided to watch it live. You weren't going to listen to Drew's bullshit anymore and wait for the whole season to be done. And then I think it was one of the weekends where one of Sam's friends had come into town, and like we kicked him out. We were just like, we're gonna watch a movie, like, please leave. And so Johnny took Sam rock climbing, and we watched Grease 2 because I'd never seen it. And there was a solid like 45-minute rant that I had when the boys got home, just about like Grease 2 and how ridiculous it is, and how much I was just like, why did you make me watch this movie? And just, she was just like, you know, that would make great content. We should do a podcast
and talk about how that movie is ridiculously good.
Yes. Yes. We were bouncing around the idea of starting a podcast.
Yes.
I don't know why.
Because I had always wanted to do one, but never really had a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And this was long before Lady Pod Squad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoop whoop.
Very long before.
And I feel like I knew, for me personally, as a woman, you get like the nobody wants to hear my opinion, especially about movies, because it's so male dominated.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm in the industry. I have a perspective. And so I had just turned 30 that year. So I thought to play on that trope of like, oh no, my life's over. I just turned 30, as you see in rom-coms.
And here's the thing. Neither one of us like really like rom-coms. Like we did not start this out because we like rom-coms. A lot of people make that misconception because of our podcast. Yeah. But no,
because we're women.
Yeah, I'm a huge comic book nerd. Yeah. I love the comic book movies. I love Disney movies. That's probably like my favorite like popcorn movie genre.
Yeah.
But like my favorite movie, which is another thing that me and Justine share, is The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Like I really like those types of movies that really make you think about things. And really like dig into like a real relationship kind of like relationship driven movies rather than these kind of popcorn in between like relationship porn, I guess is the best way to call rom-coms. Is that's kind of what it is. It's the ideal version of what some people think romance should be, and it's really not our thing.
Yeah.
But it is our thing.
But now it is.
Now.
Well, and
But a lot of people like get that misconception, and that really like sometimes that's like the needle that I'm just like, no, please stop.
Yeah. If you had one thing to tell your listeners or want your listeners to know, that might be it. Mine is that I'm a solo host, but a lot of time people are like, "You girls are great." I'm like, what? I have guests, but I'm always like, who are these other girls? I was like, all right. My cat Rooney, no, she doesn't care.
Aw, Rooney is great.
She is great. I do love her. So I like that you take this perspective that is not only from your professional field, but also this idea that there are a lot of problems with movies, right? There's some good things, there's some good surprises, there's things that, like Frozen for me was where they flipped the script. Like I went to see that movie with my mom in the theater opening weekend, and I was like, well, let's just go see it. It's supposed to be good. Like I had no idea. And as it was starting to be like the climactic scene, I'm like, go kiss him. Like you have to get there. And I'm thinking that this guy has to kiss her. And then I was like, oh, sisterly love. I didn't think about that because I've been watching Disney my entire life. So I'm always thinking like the prince has to save a princess. And I'm like, oh, damn, you got us, Disney. You flipped the script.
And we've been conditioned. Like these movies, at least, especially the ones that we watch, are 90% of the time written and directed, and everything like from the high up is done by a straight white man. And they're telling us what we're supposed to like instead of us telling them what we like. Yeah. So it's kind of like we're conditioned to be like, oh, well, we're supposed to like that because the men like to feel heroic. But at the same time, it's like we have the capacity to save ourselves. So we talk a lot about that kind of aspect of it on the podcast. Yeah.
I have to say I was pretty mad at myself because I teach a gender communication class, and then I was like, oh, damn, Disney got me. I am conditioned.
Well, it's interesting. Like you don't really recognize it until like it's right there, like in your face. Like they do flip the script on you, and you're like, oh, wait. They did get me originally. Like it was a problem for me. I just didn't think it was. Yeah.
And I love Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I actually use that in the classroom for several different topics. And when it first came out, I asked students, when you have a breakup, would you like to completely forget that person ever existed? Or would you like to have them as part of your relational history, as part of who you are? And that's always an interesting debate in class. But no, that movie is great. So what, in terms of the relationships there, we've been talking a little bit about the things that you like, things that you've shared together. What are some of the things that really reflect sort of your friendship love? You have the podcast, you talk about rom-coms, and you've talked about being nerdy in a couple different ways. You have the same background in your professional world. What are some other things that reflect you as friends?
Well, Ashley just knows everything about me. It's so rude. Knows what I'm going to do before I do it.
I mean, I think, yes, that is somewhat true. Justine likes to say that I'm really good at reading like people and understanding like what their body language is saying versus what they're actually telling me. Yeah. Which makes me pretty good at, movie making because I can read an actor and tell when the performance is genuine and not. But
nice.
I think for both of us, we have a way to communicate without so many words. Like we've had entire conversations that just take place in emoji or GIF, and we know exactly what each other is trying to say, and we're just comfortable with that because we don't necessarily need to say like the outright things. And there are times where I just have to send this really long text message, and I don't need any like advice or anything. I just need somebody to listen to me because nobody's listening to me at that moment. And I just do that to Justine, and she knows that, I don't need to break this down, and I don't need to tell her what to do. She just needs to rant.
And I mean, and that took a little while to learn, you know? How to deal with your emotions. But I think, it's just like what everybody, you know.
Yeah. Well, and I think that I'm not saying that I am an easy person to deal with, because I have a lot that I have to deal with on my own, and I do have problems. Let's just they're not problems. I have a version of crazy.
Yeah.
Ashley has PTSD, and you know, it comes with its own set of guidelines. But for me, I don't know. I think it's easy to follow along because she'll directly tell you what she wants. So all you need to do is listen to her.
I think that's really important.
And it's not like I'm being demanding or anything. No. It's just like, I need you all to stop.
Yeah.
Give me the puppy and put me in a room, and I'm pretty much okay.
And then people to me will be like, is she okay? Is she fine? I'm like, she's fine.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I don't think we do listen a lot, or that we have learned things, whether through movies or from other friendships, that there's a certain thing that you have to do to be a good friend, right? That social support is one of the things that friends do. There's emotional support. There's informational support. There's ego support, where you're like the hype person for them, like make them feel good. Like there's different types, but you have to know what types that person wants or what they need, right? And a lot of times we don't know what people need unless they tell us. So I do appreciate the direct approach. Like, what can I do for you right now? Because a lot of times people will immediately go, I need to solve your problem. And you're like, no, I would just like someone to be there for me and listen, right? And so a lot of times
Hello, Sam.
Husband shade.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I think a lot of times we think we're helping people, but it's not helpful, right? And so they might turn to other people. And that happened with a friend. I was like, oh, I thought I was helping. Nope, I'm not. And so it took me to realize, as long as she's getting the support she needs in that time, then that's a good thing. Now, if I'm going to be a good friend to her, I might say, is there something that I can do to help? And if she says no, then always be there, but know that the type of support I give is not going to be helpful. So one of the things that I like to talk about in this podcast is, you know, it's really about celebrating friendships and talking as authentically about friendships as possible, but truly celebrating them. And they're all different, right? Like I talked to another friendship today, and although you both mentioned Frozen, which I think is weird, they've been completely different, right? And so I think it's important to understand like what friendships mean to people, because I think in our society we don't spend enough time talking about friendships, valuing them, celebrating them. And so I have this thing that I call Dear Friend, and it's sort of, what does the other person mean to you? And so, Ashley, what does Justine mean to you, or what has she meant?
I'm crying already.
Oh, okay, sorry. And then Justine for Ashley, sorry. You're going to have to provide your own tissue. I live in a different state.
Well, I can't look at her while I say this.
Yeah, go ahead. Whatever you need to do. Whatever you need to do.
Well, I think I wouldn't be able to deal with the things that I deal with without Justine. I think I've gotten better because she's here. We're going to just throw out the freaking Wicked reference. Because without a solid foundation in just support and love and understanding and no judgment, it's really, really, really hard to deal with PTSD. Because it's very isolating, and your brain is literally telling you that you're possibly in a different time period than when you're not, and that's really hard. So, but when Justine's here physically and she sees that that's happening, it's easier to deal with because she doesn't escalate it. Yeah. She sees it and lets me process it the way that I need to process it rather than trying to fix it. And I really appreciate not being fixed, like allowing to have the strength to fix it myself.
Empowerment. I love it. Where's
I
my
feel like
tissue?
You're getting married all over it.
She didn't leave you this time, though, right?
These are our wedding vows.
She's really like she's really the Eliza Hamilton of the show. She's just like the powerhouse, like just knocking it down and taking care of business, but also being, strong and someone who can kind of stand up to a crazy world.
It is a crazy world, though, for real.
She doesn't always think that she's strong, but she is.
Are you okay?
Oh my God!
I mean, I'm the first one to tell her these things.
Yeah.
I get it. It's hard to kind of, when you're so close to yourself, it's really hard to be like, oh yeah, I am strong. I am a badass. So it's nice to always hear that sometimes, but sometimes you got to believe me. Justine.
Oh, it's hard.
No, that speaks to me, and sometimes we have friends who will shout it from the rooftops over and over and over again, and there'll be one time that we'll take that and believe it and go, you're right.
Well, I think like we just complete like the certain things in each other that we both kind of need. Like Justine needs the encouragement and the empowerment a little bit more than I do, but I need someone who isn't going to leave, even though she does leave.
I'm sorry, I keep leaving. I know it's a trigger.
No, I know, but I don't mean that like in like a bad thing. I it's more of a joke now than anything else.
Yeah,
but there's just that something. Like, it's just something that is needed. And I love that Frozen is like that centerpiece. Because that is, like, it's like she is my sister, like, for real. And, I can be Elsa and I can be isolated and all this crazy stuff. Like, even my ring looks like Elsa. But anyway, that's another story. But that's, like, the thing. And, like, Justine is Anna with this boundless energy and sense. She does have a sense of herself. She just she needs to connect with it a little bit more. That's sweet. Now that I'm done making you cry, it's your turn.
I know. I'm so crying. What I love about Ashley, because I love my Ashley. I think it's cool that we can just like pick up after a minute. Like we did. We hung out the other night. We hadn't seen each other for over a month, a couple months.
Almost 2 months.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like a big to-do. It wasn't like a whole like, hug thing. It was just like she came in, she's like, oh, here's Xander. And I'm like, yay, puppy. And like,
just back to normal.
yeah, and I think that that's really cool, and I don't have that. First of all, I'm like, I don't have a lot of friends is how I consider myself. I don't have a lot of friends. I think it's hard to make friends, especially for me. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to cry.
Take your time.
You can do it.
Here,
I won't stare at you. I will turn this.
I don't know, and just Ashley is just like always there. And, you know, it is hard, and we do have like this complicated relationship, and we do like quote unquote work together, whether it be in editing and especially the podcast, you know.
Yeah.
So that there is like that division of like, okay, we're talking work and we're talking friendship, we're talking relationship, you know. But I think that we do balance it well, you know, and I think it's cool that she still wants to be my friend.
Oh.
So I think we had like semi alluded to that, like I was in like an abusive relationship. And not a lot of people know that. And it's like, not even like my family really knows like how that was. Like, I feel like they're starting to just get like the hints of how it was. But like, I don't talk to my family like how I talk to Ashley. So that's why I'm like, Ashley knows everything about me because she's the only one I talk to. Because it's hard for me to open up, which may seem weird as, you know, the podcaster who does that every week. You know?
But you're doing it with your friend.
Yeah. That's why I really love doing it, because it allows me to do so.
There's no judgment, and I've been in several abusive relationships and like different kinds of abusive and different kinds of relationships, and I get it. I'm not going to judge her for, you know, wanting to try and make things work or wanting to stay or whatever. And I think that's probably why I have a harder time. Like, I really want to be still angry, and she's capable of letting it all go. Because I'm like, nah, you're not gonna, like, you don't get to have that power, but you also need to understand that you were a terrible person. Like, the fact that he'd never got that he was a terrible person really aggravates me, and I can't let that go because I want to make sure that he knows because there's that defensive thing where I just want, I'm an aggressive person, and I will aggressively tell you that you're a shithead. Because hockey was something that actually got me through my childhood, and probably is why I'm not as, hockey and Harry Potter. Those are my two things that I always credit. That are why I don't act on those feelings. But I do have those feelings where I'm just like, no, like, you can't treat people that way and then expect the whole world to be okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not an aggressive person. I'm very quiet, and I don't. I like
You're
talking
the
to
passive
people.
person, and I'm not.
It's like, I like talking to people on the internet much better than I like talking to people in real life, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people, you know, if it's like difficult, it is difficult to make friends, right? Especially now when we're so isolated in different ways. But I think there's a lot of good things about the internet and a lot of bad things. And one of the positive things is that there are people who have complete friendships online and have never met. And those friendships are just as meaningful, if not more, than their face-to-face. But I think also the internet can help enhance our relationships. Like you were talking about being at a distance and things like that. You haven't seen each other since November. How did you stay in touch during that time? Did you memes? Texting, yeah. But like,
so she was working in Seattle, and she was working on a movie, and so she was on set for that movie, and so she was gone. You were gone for 3 weeks?
3 weeks. Time? That was in October.
Yeah.
That was in October. And then she came back, and we spent Thanksgiving together. And then you went back in January, right?
January 15th or 16th this year, I went back to Seattle, and it was there for 46 days.
Yeah. And so there's, like, we were capable of texting. Sometimes she was busy, and, you know, I would text her, and I wouldn't hear back, and that's fine. Like, I'm not one of those people who are like, oh, why didn't you fucking text me back, Justine? Like, I'm just not that type of person. So, because I understand, and I don't want that. Like, I feel bad sometimes when I don't answer right away, or I forget, because I do that a lot. But It's mostly through text messaging.
Yeah.
We're not the phone call type. I mean, I'll call her every once in a while. Like if I'm listening to a podcast. There was one time where I was listening to the Lady Bird podcast that she did with somebody else or Amanda. It was Amanda, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I couldn't remember. Yeah, it was Amanda. And she was talking about something, and I really loved Lady Bird, and so I get very passionate about it. I'm just like, I need to tell you. So
I was like phoning into, and I'm like, we recorded that like 6 months ago. I don't know what you're talking about. But she wanted to phone into the radio show.
But I just needed her to know that. So there's that kind of like stuff. Like we don't necessarily have to tell each other everything, but there are things that are important that we have to tell each other.
Including opinions about ladybirds.
Opinions about Ladybird, you know, what like poop consistency.
Oh my God, we
what
talk
the
about
dog
poop
is.
so much.
We do talk about poop so much. How our periods have been, like, you know, like that kind of stuff. That's important. It's important lady conversation.
Things that sisters and friends talk about, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, nothing I would ever tell my sister. I have an actual sister.
Okay, this sister friend. We'll call you a sister friend.
She's my sister wife.
Oh, yay. Can that be the title of this episode? People might get confused.
They might get confused.
Yeah, so tell me more about the wedding. How did that go?
It was so stressful. I didn't even get married. No, Ashley got married.
I almost killed us in the car on the way there.
Oh, yeah. Hot tip, I can't drive. That's fine. So Ashley drove us to her own wedding. I wouldn't recommend doing that. For some reason, we thought that was
a good idea. So, like, I don't know if anybody knows this, but you get nervous on your wedding day. Like a level of nervous that you can't control. It's just, it's terrible. Oh. So we had this rental car, and all the other cars had been filled up and taken already over to St. Louis. So I'm technically from a small town called Alton, Illinois, and it's right across the Mississippi River from St. Louis. Mm-hmm. So it was about a 20-minute drive to get to the location, the venues. And I don't know why we didn't have Drew drive. Like, I still, to this day, do not understand why we didn't do that.
Like, Google Maps doesn't exist. We're like, he's going to get lost.
Yeah.
This was 2 years ago.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to drive. It will be fine. And no, it was not fine. we almost got hit by a truck. Like,
oh my gosh.
It was not.
It's the end of the podcast right there.
Yeah, it was not like I'm not exaggerating. We almost got hit by a truck. I had to swerve out of the way.
Oh my God. You don't need that stress on your wedding day?
Because I was so nervous and just did not. I think I was more nervous about having to stand up in front of people than I was about anything.
Yeah, I hear that.
So Ashley told me 3 days before the wedding that I was her maid of honor. Something that people usually know a lot further in advance.
How did that happen?
I thought that was obvious. Honestly, I thought I had told her.
Yeah.
Like, I thought we had a conversation. So I have this problem where I have the conversation in my own mind because I prep for it, and I believe that conversation actually happens. I honestly think it's a problem with the PTSD that I don't know what's always happening.
Gotcha.
So I think that things happen that don't happen. And
I do that with email. Students will be like, did you get my email? I'll be like, did I? I thought I replied to that, but
so many emails.
But yeah,
I think it's all the emails.
There was like a moment. There was like a moment where I'm just like, yeah, so you're going to do your Maid of Honor speech. And she's like, wait, what?
I had no speech 3 days before I had to give a speech in front of all these people.
As someone who studies communication, I'm like, oh my gosh, if my students have a speech coming up on this Monday, and if they haven't started it yet... concerned.
And I am not a writer or a public speaker.
So did you get it
You
done?
did
How did that
great.
go?
It was great. No, I that's what I focused on. And I think I did a really good job, actually.
Oh, we get head nod
Yes,
approvals from
she did.
Ashley.
Yes, no, she did. She brought down the house.
Oh.
I made everybody cry.
Cry, yeah, you did.
And
Including herself.
Yes. Oh my God. I had like PTSD of that moment for like
Yeah.
several weeks after of just I
Yeah.
would close my eyes and see Ashley's crying face crying at me, from that moment.
Well, and then to make matters worse, you had like your throat. You had like a sore throat or something.
Oh, right. I got sick too. I forgot about that.
this is like stress out everyone.
No, it literally, I think I stressed her out so much unintentionally that she got sick. I felt really bad.
Yeah.
Like,
That's why I
don't
told you
know
it
if
was
she
intense.
knew that, but I felt really bad.
That's why she and we just have certain parts of the wedding just blocked out of memory.
Yeah,
Usually do. Let us never speak of it again, right?
But I have the speech if
yeah,
you
I would
wanna
love to hear it. I mean, I got tissue just in case.
Yeah, and I haven't like read it since I read it then. So
Oh gosh.
She has it.
Okay.
it's a
we're
little
all
longer
ready.
than I remember.
It's like 4 pages.
No,
my-
okay, it's 3.
Get it right.
Okay, gosh, now I have to read this in the. Oh my gosh,
You got
are you ready?
I'm ready.
Yes, I'm ready.
Ashley, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Most of you do not know me. I'm an unmarried 30-something female trying to make it in a big city. And my best friend Ashley just got married. I am a romantic comedy trope. Crying already. What is a trope, you ask? Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up. A trope is a common or overused theme or device in films, like dead batteries in a flashlight or coolly walking away from an explosion. If you don't know, Ashley and I have had a project for the past year where we watch romantic comedies and release podcast episodes talking about what we've learned from these chick flicks. We do this every week, good or bad every week. We record ourselves every week. In our podcast, we've discussed topics such as true love in The Princess Bride, rekindling failed marriages in His Girl Friday, and what to do when your gambling husband becomes jealous of your incredible vaudeville fame, like in Funny Girl. This is a good speech. The last film we watched back in LA before this spectacular wedding week was one of our favorites and arguably the best romantic comedy of all time, When Harry Met Sally. We even got Sam to watch it with us. If you've never seen this quintessential romp, it tells the story of two people who run into each other 3 times over the span of many years until, spoiler alert, they fall in love. Now, getting back to tropes, the same thing happened to Ashley and I. We first met on a film set. We found out we were living in the same street in the big city of Chicago, even held the same job at our school. This rom-com trope is called a meet cute. But to me, I thought, who was this younger, smarter clone sent here to replace me?
Oh.
As it was in When Harry Met Sally, I did not like her. A short while later, we were put together working on another project. I got over my jealousy and we developed a mentor-mentee relationship. And then many years later, when I was living in the cinematic setting of Los Angeles, another trope, I got a text from Ashley looking for a couch to sleep on. Without really consulting my boyfriend, we had Ashley for our roommate, and for 2 months, and for 2 months. And as they say in When Harry Met Sally, then we fell in love. Although this magic time, all through this magic time was Sam. I've seen them support each other. I've seen them struggle. I've seen them fight a lot. And now they are starting a whole new project together. Not quite as documented as our podcast, but still with love at first sight, a big fat wedding, and true love's kiss, and maybe a mermaid. Now, in the final act of a romantic comedy, there's one more trope. One of the characters makes a declaration. They've had their grand epiphany. And to quote When Harry Met Sally, when you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with a person you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible. So start your life, Ashley and Sam. Oh, God.
That is so... I love it. Ashley, what does it feel like to hear it again?
I knew it was really good, but like I forgot. I downplayed in my mind how good it was, apparently.
It was so good. I was freaking out over here because I was like, oh my God, you're When Harry Met Sally as a friendship. And then, but okay.
I forgot that you thought I was going to replace you because I thought like the exact opposite. I was just like, I'm never going to be as good at like anything as Justine. Isn't that
how
funny?
the tables have turned.
Yeah. Have they?
We're good at different things.
Yeah, we're very good at different things, yes.
And it seems supportive of all the things that you do. And I mean, that speech is great. To say that you're not a writer or a public speaker, I mean, there's so much heart in it, but also like for someone who listens to your podcast, but also like knowing what your podcast is about and hearing more about your friendship, I can't think of anything more perfect. Like it's a nice tribute. How do you feel after reading it for the first time since the wedding, Justine?
I feel like I'm shaking. It's like right back in that moment of like having to do that.
You're like, please don't make me public speak.
I'm like, I just keep going. I'm sorry to your listeners. I'm sorry. My voice is.
Oh no, I like it.
You were way shakier then.
Yes.
You were way shakier then, I will say that.
Much better the second time around.
Less people staring at you.
No, it wasn't even the people. It was Ashley the first time around. Like,
oh.
When I read that speech, it was like, it was only Ashley and I. Like,
yeah.
It was this hyper, it was seriously like they do in movies that like hyper, like tunnel vision, everything else is blurred out.
It's like West Side Story.
Yes, exactly. Because she was helping me get through it.
Yeah, no, I told her to just stare at me the entire, because I knew she was already like dreading it and she had like had a slight anxiety attack. I think it was it was probably the day before. And I'm like, you can just read it to me. Like, you don't have to stare at anybody else. Just ignore it and just pretend like we're talking on the podcast. Like, that's all you're doing.
Yeah. Well, to me, it's amazing because from what I know of you, which obviously is less than you know each other, it seemed really reflective of what you talked about here before reading the letter, right? And from listening to your podcast. And so one of the things that you mentioned earlier was that it was sort of your wedding day as well. I still love that your aunt was so supportive of your wedding, Justine, to Ashley. And so would you say that your friendship changed a lot after that moment, that there was a speech that sort of that declaration trope, if you will, right? That we don't do that in friendship, right? That there isn't a lot of declaration unless you have like a necklace where it's the heart broken down in half and one side says best and the other side says friends, or sometimes people get matching tattoos and things like that. But I think that it is important for friendships to have those conversations, like for friends to know how much the other person means to each other, which is why I do that dear friend that you both beautifully did, because I don't think we do it enough. And so what was that like, Ashley, to hear this declaration of love, of friendship love? Did you say I do?
I mean, we had been making the joke that me and Justine were the actual people getting married for, oh my God, we've been doing it for a year before we actually got married. It was not, like, it was just, oh yeah, it was normal for us to kind of talk about that. I mean, anytime I leave or she leaves, we always just say we love each other. Like, I think that that's important for friends to hear that too, because love is not just romantic love. And I don't think I've ever seen actually a movie where friends say I love you to one another, except for maybe I Love You Man, which is in the title.
Yes.
Because it's just not something we're taught to do. Mm-hmm. And when you don't see it, it becomes really easy to not think that the other person needs that. Mm-hmm. But you do need that reassurance, because sometimes there's just miscommunications or you misread the cues, like Justine thinking that I'm going to replace her, but me thinking, oh no, I'm never going to be like on that same level. Yeah. So we have these miscommunications and these assumptions that we make about certain situations. Mm-hmm. So it's important to make sure that you do say things to make sure that they actually know what you're feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, we've cried at each other a lot.
Yeah.
Off podcast.
Off podcast. Well, that's the thing is, like, you know, people say the key to relationships is communication, and that might be a tropey sentence that people drop everywhere. I mean, how many times have I seen that in an online article or on magazines, like, communication is key, but I don't think people know what that means necessarily. And I think that your friendship reflects the idea of, like, talking and knowing everything about each other, but not everyone has to do that. That works for your friendship, right? Like, and being open and having these feelings and talking about those things and having these declarations. I love it. I need to have a declaration of love segment in the future where people tell me about their declaration moments. Please send them in.
Well, I think, like, and there's, like, sometimes people get focused on communicating only being about your words. But it's not. It's not just about, at least for us, like, it's about, like, the action behind the words. Mm-hmm. And also, like, not having to use words. Like, sometimes there's just things that you don't know how to describe or you don't know what to say. Mm-hmm. So it's better to just not say, I guess, anything if you don't know how to describe it. Yeah. But then there's also the times where you just need to rant and just get everything out at somebody and not need an opinion. Mm-hmm. I mean, Justine is sometimes the emergency therapist that I need, but I don't want her to ever feel like she has to do that. That she has to respond to that or that she has to fix that, because that's not her responsibility. That's my responsibility to fix it. So I don't want her to take my responsibility away. Yeah. But it's nice to have somebody to also hold yourself accountable. Yeah. Which I think we do. We do hold each other accountable, because there are times where I'm like, I can't record the podcast today. Yeah. And, you know, that's disappointing and that's hard for me to say because I feel like I'm letting her down. Yeah. But it just sometimes just gets to the point where I'm just like, especially, oh my God, when we were in that cycle of just so many, just every movie was just terrible had terrible everything. And
it was emotionally draining for us to watch that many bad movies.
Yeah. About these tropes. Yeah.
Like, it got to a point where it's just like, can we just stop and watch Lego Batman instead? Like, can we just do that?
Best movie of the year.
Which I think one day we did. Yeah. Like, I think there was one day where I just had, like, a complete emotional breakdown, and I'm like, we're watching Lego Batman. I don't care what we were supposed to watch. We're watching Lego Batman first. And I feel like that's hard. That's hard. Mm-hmm. That's, like, such a hard thing, because I don't want to disappoint, and I don't want to ruin the plan. Yeah. Like, ruining the plan, like, for some reason, just drives me up a wall and makes me think like Justine's going to be mad and she's going to be yelling at me.
No, and she knows I'm such a planner and I need my routine, but I think, the thing with me is if you tell me enough in advance, like we can change the routine, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm fine.
And I think it comes down to understanding, right? Like understanding that all these movies in a row have been horrible, right? And that we might need to change the plan, but understanding that first off, that you said you don't want to disappoint Justine, but it could very well be like that's not a disappointment to Justine, right? Like she understands that sometimes things change, and that's what I think we need in friendship, and it might not come all the time, right? Because people are starring in their own movie, or they're the main character in their movie.
Yeah, they're the main character in their own movie. They have to be the best friend too.
Yeah, exactly. It's full circle now. And I think that's exactly right. Like, that's what we need with friendship. We need both. You need to be the main character and you need to be the best friend. So I just want to say thank you so much for being on here and being so open with me about your friendship and to everyone else, because I think it is important to hear everyone's experience in friendship because it's different. And I think it can get us to think about things differently in our own friendships. Like, I really love that idea of the main character and the best friend. I think that is a great metaphor. And I also think that some of the things that we brought up, just this level of how we socially support people, how we listen and understanding, is just a good reminder, I think, to everyone that we need to do those things with our friends, right? And listen and support them and
trust, because I don't think our friendship would work at all without a level of trust, because there is that fear of disappointing her, but I do trust her to have my back, and I think she trusts me to have her back. I mean, I packed up your entire apartment like a bamf.
Yeah.
And that might be the question, is like whether or not people trust their friends. And that might be where some conflict comes in for other people, is because that trust is wavering, or maybe it wasn't ever there. That's a sad way to end.
I trust Ashley to always be my best friend.
Yay!
I trust you to be my best friend too.
Aww.
And I trust that Justine and Ashley are going to be friends for a very long time. And I'm so glad that they were able to come on the podcast. They're so open to talk about their friendship. And throughout their story, there's so many little pieces, little nuggets, little friendship gems and love and lessons and things to remind us of why we love our friends and some of the things that maybe we could do better in our friendship. Or we hope that looking for friends, we can find people like this. And so I love it. So great. And, the Cutaways is part of the Lady Pod Squad, as I talked about at the top of the episode. And during the episode, you could also hear Ashley mention Amanda and how Justine and Amanda were talking about the movie Lady Bird on a podcast. And what they were referring to was Amanda from Amanda's Picture Show, A Go-Go. And so I definitely wanted Amanda's podcast to be the promoted podcast for this episode because of that. And so I am giving you a personal recommendation to get on your device and do whatever you need to do that's what noises your phone makes, right? Or your laptop or iPad. Get into whatever you need to get into and subscribe to Amanda's Picture Show, Go-Go. Now, Amanda knows all things movies. You cannot go wrong. She's so knowledgeable, but what's really fun, now, first off, I guess I should mention, she has a menagerie of podcasts about movies, but specifically, I'm talking about Amanda's Picture Show, Go-Go. And what's really neat about this podcast is that she has guests on, and the person's never seen the movie before. And so they can be current movies, they can be past movies. Like, just think about some of the movies that people are like, I've never seen that. And you're like, how in the fresh hell have you never seen that movie? Well, she gets those people, they go on the podcast and they talk about it. And that just results in these wonderful conversations about all kinds of movies. So I highly recommend Amanda's Picture Show, Go-Go. And then also stay tuned, because Amanda and I have been talking about having her come on to talk about a friendship movie on Best Forevers, and then me going on her podcast to talk about a movie. But how are we going to be able to choose a movie that I haven't seen? Because I think I'm pretty well versed in movies, but I'm sure she can find something. But yes, Amanda's Picture Show, A Go-Go. So today has been all about friendship love and Lady Pod Squad love. So I guess this is time for us to end today. So until next time, friends, be sure to make a declaration of friendship love, because without our friends, who would we be? Thanks for listening to Best Forevers. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and of course, share with a friend. Please be sure to follow Best Forevers on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Best Forevers Pod, and I'm at Dr. Alysa Lucas on Twitter. You can always find the podcast webpage for more information at bestforeverspod.com, and share your stories of friendship by emailing me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support the movement to love on our friends more, check out the podcast on patreon.com/bestforeverspod.